Okay, hello Cloud Gurus and welcome to this lecture. In this lecture we're going to look at AWS WAF or Web Application Firewall. So WAF is a web application firewall that allows you to monitor the HTTP and HTTPS requests that are forwarded to Amazon CloudFront, an application load balancer, or API gateway, and essentially allows you to control access to your content. So with HTTP and HTTPS, that's happening at the application layer. Sometimes this is referred to as layer 7 in the OSI model. So a web application firewall is a layer 7 aware firewall, and it can see things like query string parameters. It can see the actual information that you're sending to your web servers. So you might be wondering what a query string parameter is. This is a good example of one. You see them all the time when you use the internet. So you've got your web address in here. And it ends with your top level domain name. Then you've got this question mark, and then you will have some variables. And this is what's called a query string parameter. It's passing variables back to your web server. So this variable is called ID, and it's equal to 1001. This variable is the name, and it's equal to Ryan. So your web application firewall can actually see down into the layer 7 of this query string parameter, whereas a physical hardware firewall would only be able to go up to layer 4. So web application firewalls are a lot more secure. They can see a lot more information than a typical firewall. So you can configure conditions such as what IP addresses are allowed to make this request, or what query string parameters need to be passed for the request to be allowed. And then the application load balancer or CloudFront or API gateway will either allow this content to be received or give a HTTP 403 status code. So at its most basic level, AWS WAF allows 3 different types of behavior. Behavior number 1, allow all requests except the ones that you specify. Behavior number 2, block all requests except the ones that you specify. Or number 3 is sort of a passive mode, which is just where it's going to count the requests that match the properties that you specify. So in terms of the extra protection that WAF provides, it protects against web attacks using conditions that you specify. And you can define conditions by using characteristics of web requests, such as the IP address that it originates from, the country that requests originate from, and that's a really, really popular exam question. You might have an embargo against some country, and you need to block their access to your website. How do you do this? Well, using AWS WAF is definitely one of the correct answers. Values in request headers, strings that appear in requests, either specific strings or strings that match regular expressions, the lengths of the request, and then WAF can also detect things like SQL code that is likely to be malicious, so this will be things like SQL injections, as well as the presence of a script that is likely to be malicious. This is sometimes known as cross-site scripting. So onto my exam tips. Just remember, you're going to be given a whole bunch of different scenarios, and you'll be asked to block how to block malicious IP addresses, or perhaps how to prevent against SQL attacks or SQL injections or cross-site scripting, or block individual countries. Well, you want to use AWS WAF. You can also use network ACLs to block malicious IP addresses, and we're going to cover this off in more detail in the VPC section of the course. So that is it for this lecture, everyone. If you have any questions, please let me know. If not, feel free to move on to the next lecture. Thank you.